Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Brittany, and I'm an educator at the St. Louis Zoo. I'm so excited you're joining me today. I'll be using a presentation as well for this program, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Some community learning standards. If you've been with us before, you know these, but for those of you that have not, welcome. We do this every time as a review. So we want to make sure that we are friendly and respectful to one another the entire time in our chat box interactions, and use the Q&A box for relevant and appropriate questions for today's topic. I'm really looking forward to seeing what questions you guys have for me. We want to use the chat box to respond and interact in regards to this topic. This is really nice to have because I can't actually see you guys as I'm teaching, which can seem a little strange versus how I used to teach. And so it's the only way that we can interact together. Also understand that if Connor needs to ask you to change your behavior in the chat in any way, you may be removed from the webinar. All right, excellent, guys. Let's get started. What's the buzz with pollinators? This topic is one that is near and dear to my heart, and it was very difficult for me to condense it down to fit it in this time frame, and I will do my very best to not go over in time. But if you've ever been really excited about talking about a certain animal or a topic, maybe a video game or something that you like to do, like an art or a craft, you know that it can be difficult sometimes to know when to just stop. So today is an exciting one for me, and this week is exciting because it is National Pollinator Week. If you didn't know that, make sure you take some time today to go outside in nature and thank our pollinator friends for all of the work that they do. Now, for today's webinar, we are going to be doing kind of a craft if you'd like to join along. Now, if you've watched my bird webinar, this will be similar to when I was creating a bird. I'm going to have polls pop up. You guys are going to help choose different characteristics, and we are going to be creating a bee today. So if you have a piece of paper, coloring utensils, a pencil that you want to go ahead and grab, go ahead and get those, and then come on back. And we'll be doing that throughout the webinar, and I'll show you the bee at the end. All right, when we talk about pollinators, I thought it probably would be best to explain what pollination is. So pollination, very simply put, is the movement of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. So you can see the labels here. And this can be done in a couple different ways. There are different pollination types. So it can be self-pollination, which just takes one flower. And so the pollen stays with one flower and moves down into the ovary here. Or it can be cross-pollination, and that's the really fun one, where pollen grains move from one flower all the way to another part on the other flower. This can be done through wind, water, or my favorite way, assisted with the help of some animals. And when animals help, we call them pollinators. Now, what are pollinators? The curious thing that I want to know is, what are some pollinator examples? What comes to your mind when I say pollinators? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. Butterflies, bees, excellent, yeah. And those are what I think of too. But did you know that there are even more types? And some of them actually surprised me a bit too. So pollinators are not just bees and butterflies, but all of these too. Oh, Isabel, I see you got it, Isabel. There's a bat in here too. Yes, so we have bats, beetles, birds, mammals, and reptiles. That's a lot of different animal groups involved. So thinking about, again, pollination is the movement of pollen grains, and flowers have nectar sources that these animals go to. Sometimes animals might be even hunting another animal, brush up against the pollen grains and move pollen without even knowing that they're doing it. So pollinators are not necessarily just going to a flower because they say, oh, I need to go do this. This is my job. I need to help this plant. They're going to flowers for different reasons, whether it be they're attracted to a color, a scent, the nectar source that's there. So they have like a relationship with these flowers, and they help to move those pollen grains around. Now, it's really important that we have our pollinators because 70%, which is a lot, of plants need them to produce the seeds and the fruits that we like to eat. Now, sticking with, again, I only have so much time with you today. Sticking with one group, I am going to focus a little bit more on insects. The reason I'm going to do that is because there are so many types of insects. This pie graph here is showing you the number of species of insects compared to other animals. So we know a lot about maybe mammals and birds, but there are so many more species of insects. It still blows my mind. 900,000 known species. And guess what, guys? We are still discovering more. The more we learn about nature, the more fascinating it becomes. So we don't even know all of the species out there yet. Now, because again, I only have so much time, we're going to focus just on one chunk of our insects. We're going to focus on our bees, the buzz on bees. But knowing that I recognize some names, welcome back to this webinar. I bet you guys know a little bit about insects. So what makes an insect compared to other invertebrates? What's something that they have? What do you think? What would make an insect an insect? 6 legs, yep, that checks out. And this might be tricky. Wings, yeah, no bones. Antenna, abdomen, oh, excellent, guys, perfect. So when I think of an insect, yeah, our 3 body parts, excellent job. We have a head, a thorax, and an abdomen. So those are those 3 body segments. They don't always look like this. You can imagine like a ladybug and a dragonfly. Their abdomen and thorax look very different than this carpenter bee. They have antenna, 6 segmented legs, and most of them have wings. Now, again, this is a carpenter bee that I actually found in my backyard. I stayed a safe distance away from him, so I didn't bother him. But it was really fascinating to see them a little bit closer. So you can really tell those segmented legs apart. Now we are going to go to our first bee poll. Before we do, if you want to grab your piece of paper and pencil, draw 3 body segments. So again, that's that head, thorax, abdomen. They can just be 3 circles, almost like a snowman. Do 2 eyes, 2 antennae, and some 6 segmented legs. Segmented just means they have joints. You can also just draw a little line. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a very quick bee outline because we have a lot of things coming up to add to our bee. Okay, I'm going to show you guys what my bee looks like right now. I say my bee, this is actually our bee because we are going to do this together. So I have 3 segments, eyes, antenna, 6 jointed legs. Awesome. Now in Missouri alone, there are over 400 types of bees. I never knew that there was such a high diversity of bees. And so I was very, very surprised by this. This is just a very small sampling. And what I wanted to share with you about this is that there are some different colors that maybe you haven't thought of, like grays, whites, greens. We usually think of the traditional black and yellow. There's even like coppery reds sometimes, and browns. And we can learn a lot about identification of our bees with their patterns and the colors that are used. You can use many different things. So I have some examples of like a field guide, or this is another field guide, and they actually use diagrams to show you the colors a little bit easier, and then the striping. These are just bumblebees. All right. And Angie, I like the squash bee thing that you shared down there. That's awesome. We're going to pull up another poll because now we're going to get to the pattern of our bee. So Connor, go ahead and pull up our poll, please. All right, which pattern? Stripes, polka dots, squiggly lines, or surprise? Ooh, surprise. Excellent. Okay, so grab your colors and you guys can do your surprise. I'm going to go ahead and do mine too. Now, again, mine's going to be pretty fast because I only have so much time with you guys today, but so excited. I don't know if you can hear all of my scribbling almost done. I really enjoyed to color and do crafts like this, so this is really fun. And I was excited when many of you asked, can we do another one like this? Okay, I think I got it done. That was a fast one. Excellent. So with our bees, now looking at honeybees for one specific example, honeybees themselves are social. Now a social bee, the reason I put that in there is because some bees like to live on their own. Some bees are more solitary. Honeybees are social. They live in a group, a colony with one another, and they work together. There's one queen bee. She's the only one that lays eggs. And they communicate a little bit differently than maybe how we communicate. They communicate through a dance called the waggle dance. And the waggle dance will help give them the direction and angle compared to the sun and where the flower of interest is. So when a bee finds maybe a patch of flowers, oh, I dropped my pencil. When bees find a group of flowers or a patch that they're like, this is a really great nectar source, I want to tell my family where that is. They do this waggle dance so they all know the direction to go. Lastly, what about that sting? This is something I get asked about quite often, especially at the zoo in Missouri Meadow, which is an open garden area with native plants, inviting our pollinator friends in. Now, with a sting, bees will only sting if they feel threatened, like they're trying to protect themselves or trying to protect their hive. So keep in mind that if you're too close to their home, just give them their space. And when they're buzzing around, they are doing a very busy job. They have a very busy schedule, of course, and we want to keep the space in between us and them so they know that we mean them no harm. Now, something I like are snacks. And what strawberry would you eat? Which one looks the tastiest? I agree. C looks the best of all the strawberries. So with our fruits, this is again why pollination is very important. So a self-pollinating plant with just one flower can still produce a fruit. It's not the fruit that we think of, and the seeds don't look very developed. Self and wind pollinated, so even if you have a combination of the two, sometimes isn't as successful either. So insect pollinated, so that assisted pollination really produces that fruit and those seeds that we know and really like to eat. Actually, 1 in every 3 bites of our food is thanks to a pollinator. So think about that when you're eating lunch today or snacking, that our pollinator friends are working very hard to help provide us with some really tasty treats. All right, and I'm sure that you guys always know that we like to talk about how we can help nature and how we can help our animal friends. So there are things that we can do for pollinators too, including protecting their habitat. And now protecting their habitat can look very different depending on what you'd like to do. You can leave different logs or things around for certain bee species. There are bees that like to bore holes, and that's actually where they lay their eggs. There are areas where bees like to hibernate, or you can also look into a bee home. And this is just an example bee home. You can also create your own. Connor's going to be putting in a link with some do-it-yourself conservation tips. And that link is very helpful, and that goes to our website. And if you have any questions about that, there's a lot of information. Also, respecting pollinators. So I mentioned just giving them their space. If you have like a garden in back, there are more natural methods than using pesticides because those are very, very hurtful and harmful to our pollinator friends. So we want to keep that in mind of just respecting them. And also giving them their space because obviously they have a very busy schedule. They have lots of things to do during the daytime. And planting a garden. Your garden doesn't have to be big. It can even just be inside of a planter box. And planting native plants is really helpful because native plants are used to our area, our 4 seasons. They are adapted for drier seasons or more wet seasons, depending on where you live. And there are a wide variety of plants that can meet any backyard or planter needs, whether it's full shade or full sun. And those plants provide a lot of nectar sources and also habitat for our friends too. Now we are going to pull up another poll. This is going to be about flowers. And these are 4 native flowers that I actually have in my backyard. And so these are Missouri natives, but they are over in Illinois too, and throughout North America. You might find a few of these here and there too. So Connor, go ahead and pull up our poll. We need to give our bee something tasty to eat. What is our bee's favorite flower of all those 4? And I put pictures because you may not know what they look like. And I'm really big in visuals. Like, I'm more of a visual learner myself. So I was hoping that maybe that would help us decide what to choose. Coneflower, excellent. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. This is gonna be a very, very quick coneflower drawing. I don't think I've ever drawn one so quick before, but we are gonna do it. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can definitely take more time on yours than what I am with mine, but time is of the essence. You guys have busy days, just like our bees do too. If you haven't already given your bee some wings, go ahead and give them some wings too, because they are insects. All right. I have one more thing I'd like to talk about before sharing what our bee looks like, and that's about being choosy with our plants. So being choosy with plants can be really important because certain plants grow and bloom at certain times of the year. And we want to make sure our pollinator friends have food all year long, just like we want to have our food available all year long too. So this is just a very simple chart. Plants can be different heights. They grow wider, some are more narrow, some have deeper roots, and they bloom at different times too. So you want to make sure that when you're planting a garden or thinking about planting some plants, that some plants have a longer blooming period and some are very, very short. And it's okay to choose the very, very short ones. Just make sure we have some other ones to pop in throughout the season too. Some animals are even more specific, even more choosy. So if you're a little choosy with what you eat, these 3 are also pretty choosy too. These are some native animals that we can find that are common around. And they have a special relationship with their life cycle in certain plants. So I'm sure you've heard of monarch butterflies and milkweed. There are many milkweed species, but the eastern black swallowtail butterfly was a very funny one for me. I planted dill in my garden and I had no idea that it was what's called a host plant for their larvae. They only lay eggs on certain plants, and those larvae or caterpillars only eat certain plants. They can't just go on any plant. And I started noticing these tiny caterpillars. They're so small and they looked like bird droppings, which was really strange to me. I just had no idea. So I found a field guide and I looked it up and learned that they do that because other animals don't really eat bird droppings. So it's a good form of camouflage when you're tiny. And then as they grow, they actually have these beautiful greens and black spots. They're so beautiful. So making observations, you learn more. I had no idea about this connection to a host plant. I just found out about it on a whim. All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead, stop sharing. Excellent. And I'm gonna show you our bee. I wanna thank you guys for doing that poll with me. Again, this is a very quick one. I had a surprise color, I had orange. This is our bee friend. I guess I should hold them this way because plants are not going to be growing sideways. So this is our bee that we created. I put a little heart next to it because it is National Pollinator Week and we surely want to show our insect friends some love. And we have some coneflower down below. Awesome. Now, if you guys have any questions, please put those in the Q&A for me. I'm going to go ahead. Connor, you can pull up the enjoyment poll for us. All right, do I have a favorite pollinator? This one's really hard. And I know I have butterflies in my hair, but I'm actually really, really intrigued by bats in pollination because some flowers only open up at night and there's like this really specific relationship that they have with certain bats. And I just find that really fascinating because a lot of times we only think about insects and maybe not so much about mammals that help pollinate. So I'm gonna be doing some research later and learning more about that. All right, excellent guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're curious to learn more about pollinators or other animals, please visit our website at stlzoo.org. Also, the zoo is open and we are so excited to welcome you guys back. Just be sure to visit our website. I think Connor put a link in there. Be sure to visit our website. You do need to make a timed reservation. Make sure to have your mask and be prepared to wear that as we do keep everyone safe and lessen the risks of COVID in our communities. And again, it's National Pollinator Week. If you haven't gone outside, please take some time this week or this weekend to do so. Maybe make some pollinator observations or just kind of wave to them and thank them from afar. They do so much work for us. And it's been such a pleasure having you guys with me today. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to Zooming with you again so soon. Have a wonderful day, everyone.